side of town. You'll see it spelled a little bit funny. It's spelled M-I-C-H-I-E-L. Everybody corrects it for me, makes it A-E-L. So when you see it on my cards or signs or anything, no, the printer didn't mess it up. My mom spells my name funny. Sorry about that. Michael knows spelled a little bit weird. It's some French version of it. I was supposed to be an El Pasoan. I was supposed to be born here. I kind of got ripped off on that. My parents lived here when I was born, but I was actually born in Odessa. When my mother was ready to have me, she drove to Odessa to have me. She had all of her children in Odessa. That's where her mother was, and that's where she wanted to be when she gave birth. So I was born in Odessa. All my sisters were born in Odessa, but none of us ever actually lived there at that time. And then they brought me back here. We moved around quite a bit when I was young. This is my third and final time to live here. I've been here for about the last 20 years. We did settle back in Odessa when I was about in the 6th grade. I lived there for quite a few years. Went to high school, went to Mojo's, Friday Night Lights, Odessa Permian. We might have played some of those high schools here. I remember. I know. Sorry. But I graduated high school there in Odessa, and I went to work like most people did, even while I was in high school. When I was a junior in high school, I started working in a machine shop full time. I'd go to work at 5, I'd get off at midnight. Making downhole drilling tools in the oil field. And I did that for a while. And then times got rough in Odessa. The oil business sort of went down, and I started working for UPS after that. I actually drove the little brown truck, asked the guys to sign on the line there, knock on your door, and left your packages for you. All that time, though, I was about out of high school for about 5 years. I always wanted to go to medical school. After about 5 years, I decided I was going to do it. And my friends thought I was nuts. They said, man, you got a great job. You're a Teamster. You're with UPS. Just do what you're told. You'll get a great pension. It's great pay. You got a great job. Why do you want to throw that away and go to school literally forever, it seems, and be a doctor? Well, because in my heart I felt like I could, and I felt like if you can, you should. If you can help people and bring meaningful change to people, I felt like you should, and I wanted to do it, and so I did. I went off to medical school. First, of course, college. Went to San Angelo State University in San Angelo, Texas for my college, and then from there I went to Lubbock, Texas Tech. Back in those days, it was 2 years there, and then they sent half of us off to El Paso, and a quarter off to Amarillo, and then a quarter stayed in Lubbock. I asked to be transferred to El Paso. I heard that El Paso had the most babies. I wanted to be a baby doctor. I wanted to deliver babies, so I thought I'd get more experience here in El Paso. I came here, and I started my med school, my 3rd and 4th year, finished it here in El Paso. And it was during that time that I got immersed in the culture here in El Paso. I fell in love with the city. I didn't want to leave. After I graduated med school, I decided to stay on as a resident. So I asked them, I applied, and they accepted me. So I stayed on as a resident here in El Paso in OBGYN. It was during those years that I met and fell in love with my wife, Elizabeth, who Don Williams has taken a particular interest in the last couple of months. Anyway, she had 3 kids at the time, still does. Brought them in, and over time she gave me 2 more. We now have 2 little 7-year-old twins that we're raising, and our oldest is 31 now, 30. She's working on our 2nd grandchild, so I got kids ranging everywhere, 30s to 7. Grandkids playing with my kids. Know when to stop. Alright, so during the time that we got married, I moved to the east side. I was originally living on the west side. I moved to the east side. I graduated my residency, and again, had no plans of leaving El Paso, so I stayed on at Texas Tech as faculty. And I taught there for a number of years. At that time, my office was based in the northeast, off of Dyer in Maxwell. So I've either lived and worked in quite a few areas. My wife, when we were dating, lived down in the Lower Valley. So I had reasons to go all over this town. I got to know it pretty well. After marriage, like I said, I was in with Texas Tech for a little while, for a number of years, for 4 or 5 years. And then I went into private practice in 2001. I opened my practice over on George Dieter, and I've been running a business there for about 10 years now. We bought 2 homes during that time. We built my office building that I'm currently in, and so I've had more and more exposure to the city. And I've gotten more and more involved with my community. And my community in a larger sense too. My work with medicine, I'm active at a national level, pushing for women's health care issues. And more dollars for research in women's health care, things like that. I go to Washington on a regular basis and lobby with my PAC on that. We started in my neighborhood. My neighborhood on the east side, as y'all probably heard, we don't have very many neighborhood associations. So I started a neighborhood association. I'm now the president of the Montwood Community Alliance Neighborhood Association. It goes from Montwood all the way up to Pebble Hills, from Joe Battle all the way over to Lee. It's a large group of homes, about 2,680 homes, addresses in there that I represented as a neighborhood association. I've taken courses with the Leadership Academy with the city, to know how each department's run a little bit, and I got more and more involved and paid more and more attention, started attending more and more city council meetings. And like most people, everybody always thinks they've got an answer to every problem, and so did I. But after a while, you quit talking about it and you say, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go ahead and run for city council and see if I can put the skills that I've learned to use solving problems in medicine and help in the issues that the city faces. I think that's a unique opportunity right now. Physicians are taught to solve problems in a little bit different manner. We're taught to look at risks, benefits, and alternatives of every single thing we do. And we're ethically obligated to convey those to our client, our patient, in this case would be the constituents, and get feedback from them and consent from them. Consent after they fully understand the issue. I have to look at who would benefit, what kind of adverse reactions could happen, and if something goes wrong, how would I immediately react to it? I can't wait till I'm in the middle of a surgery on somebody to have a complication and they say, ooh, shoot, I don't know what to do about this. I never planned for this. We're taught to plan everything out in detail and have plans for when the details go wrong. And I think that when issues are brought to City Hall, to the council, if they were looked at like that and investigated like that, and the information that was needed to determine who exactly might benefit, who exactly might be adversely reacted and how, adversely affected and how, and what could go wrong with this plan. I think if those issues were looked at in that manner, then a few of the decisions being made might be a little bit more rational to me. Because I look at some of the decisions made and I say they couldn't have had all the information. There's no way they would have made that decision knowing what a year later they found out, that they should have known back then if they had just asked the right people, asked the right questions. So I think that the skills I have as a physician in problem solving would benefit the council in that way. Also, I've been running a business for 10 years. I know how to run a business. I know how to work on a budget. I know how to do long-term planning. I've done it. I've done it successfully. And I want to use those same business skills to try to run or try to help run the departments. I'm just one voice up there in a business sense so that it's ran efficiently. Everybody always talks about, you know, hold the line on taxes, no new taxes, low taxes. Really, none of us mind paying the taxes that are needed for the services that we want, as long as we all know that those monies that we give the city are being spent efficiently and not being wasted. I think we'd all agree with that. If it's something that we need and we want, and we're willing to pay for it, and we give them money there, all we ask them to do is spend it wisely. That's all we ask. I think I can help in that way. The way you find out about problems like that is to listen. Listen to your constituents. Listen to the people having problems dealing with City Hall. You don't have to go through each department, go through their books, interview their people. Just listen to people, and you'll see the problems that are out there, and then follow up on them. And that's what I've done for the last year. I've been listening to the problems that people say they have with the city, asking the department heads, asking the different businesses, And yes, I'm finding areas in the city that don't understand why they're making the decision that they made. It's clearly costing us money, and it should stop. And I intend to bring that up and ask why we're wasting money here. Why aren't we doing it this way? Why are we doing it that way instead when it's wasting our tax dollars? So I'm not going in there to say cut taxes, hold the line on taxes in that manner. I just want the taxes that we spend to be spent wisely. That's all I'm asking. All right. There's a few issues. We talked about the taxes. Another issue, I think, that in speaking to people, there seems to be a disconnect, a huge disconnect between council and the constituents. Now, maybe worse in some districts than others. Some Eddie Oldine may have a great relationship with his, but there seems to be, as a whole, people don't feel like their voice is being heard by council. That's been brought up recently with the benefits vote. We've all heard that. And another big issue that I'm getting a lot of attention on with businesses is with smart growth. Smart growth is good. I like smart growth. I think there's a place for smart growth. The problem with smart growth is that it's absolute, or at least the developers are seeing it that way, that there's no in between. Everything from now on will be developed this way within the city limits. There'll be nothing else. End of discussion. And it's got them so frustrated because they don't feel like they can sell it, that they're leaving the city limits. And they've already told the city that. They're going to develop outside the city limits. Now, what good is that? It takes that tax base outside the city limits that's going to eventually get annexed, and it's going to be annexed at the type of codes that they never wanted in the first place. I don't think it's good for the people. The people out there are having their properties developed without the oversight of the city, because it's outside the city limits. And so I think there's issues with safety, police, etc. When you force the developers outside the city limits, it's a bad thing. And they feel like they're being forced outside the city limits. There's got to be some common ground where smart growth can be utilized in areas of town. Find its little market niche. But the culture of El Paso, I don't want to lose. I don't want to turn El Paso into Boston or some other city where everything is high-rise apartments. I want to see mass transit. I want to see bikes. But I don't think that you can force the entire city to change and start putting 700 square foot apartments in everybody's backyard that has been brought up in council to try to compact everything into an urban district. A lot of people live in West Texas because they like open spaces. They want a backyard. We like our barbecues and to sit around and have a beer. Personally, I don't drink that much, but I hear a few people here do.
What are you looking at you?
I moved to El Paso. I was born and raised Baptist, so that's the way it was. And then I moved to El Paso, and people have kegs at a 2-year-old's birthday party. Man, this place rocks.
We do it in the back.
You can't even get it at the grown-ups parties where I'm from. Have iced tea. So anyway, I'll close there. He's pointing out I'm out of time. So there's a million other issues we could talk about. There's other people here that want to speak. I just want to introduce myself to you, let you know a little bit about what I feel I can bring to the table and how I think I can help. Thank you. Do I get to answer any questions?
Yeah, does anybody have any questions for Dr. No?
Jaime doesn't. He talks to me all the time.
I do have a couple questions though that I think would be beneficial to the audience. Though I've already asked you. We're a partisan organization, so as such, A, why should Democrats vote for you, and B, there was a contribution that came up that you had made in the 2010 election to the Republican Congressional Committee. Could you explain that as well?
Okay. Well, we'll start with the second one, the contribution. I vote on the person. I vote on the issue. And one of the issues that is near and dear to my heart is tort reform. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a physician. I fight for things that I think will advance health care. And I think that what was at the time out of control of frivolous lawsuits Texas needed, and I fought hard for it, tort reform. And I'm fighting now for it at a national level. And what I contributed to was, I can't remember the exact name of it, but some of the Physicians Committee for something reform. It was 2 R's for reasonable reform, something like that. And I gave them $300 because we were trying to get Obama to add the possibility, or to consider at least, tort reform to the overall healthcare reform. And that's what I contributed to. It turned out that committee of physicians for responsible or reasonable reform was the Republican National Convention, something like that. Okay, that's where that went. If he goes back a little bit more, he'll also see a donation I gave to a Democrat, Sanchez, who's running for governor, whose main thing on his party platform was tort reform, and I contributed to his campaign as well. The reason why you should vote for me is hopefully because you'll vote for the person also. I do consider myself a Democrat, but I'm not a strict. If the Democrats say to vote this way, even if I disagree with it, no, you got to convince me that it's the right thing. I vote for the issue, and I vote for the person. That's the way I've always done it. Just so happens that it's almost always a Democrat. One time, he pulled up an issue on tort reform that went to the Republicans. As y'all know, the Republicans are really big on tort reform also. They and I agree on tort reform. Is that it, Jaime?
Yes.
Are you sure?
That's
all
it.
right.
One more question.
Okay. My name is Fernando Garcia Conde, and this is a double question, but simple enough. Now, number one, you're representing your district, and you're doing all very well for the district, but you're also a council person for the city. And would you get involved would you just concentrate and not get involved with anybody else in the city, just mine and nobody else? Also, number one. Number two is, what is your concept of a city manager?
Okay, we'll take the first one. I represent a district, but I represent that district at city council, which is the city. There's going to be issues that come up that I'm going to vote on. I'm not going to abstain from everything that's outside District 5. Certainly not. So no. I will use the same problem-solving techniques and rationale to vote on all issues that come across, whether it's for my district or the other. I'm certainly going to talk to, though, the representative from that district, because he's going to know his constituents, or she will know his constituents that much better than I will. Okay, hopefully that person is meeting with the constituents, has their ear, they have his or hers, and I can get information on that person on what the constituents in that district want. Okay. Now the other question you had was
your concept of the city manager.
No, in business, I've always felt that you surround yourself with people who know what they're doing. Running a city is extremely complicated. A city manager is supposed to be an expert in running a city. My problem is the city manager in El Paso is supposed to run or function at the direction of council. They tell her what they want. She tells them the most organized way to get what they want. As long as it's working in that direction, I think that's great. And I don't want to get rid of a city manager. What I want to do is make sure that the city manager is working at the direction of the council, not the other way around. Did that answer your question?
Thank you. Well, somewhat. Thank you.
If I can expand on it, I will.
No, that's it. Thank you very much, Dr. No.
Thank you.
Our next guest speaker is